A jagged, rot-resistant oak timber, blackened by 2,000 years of river silt, still holds the weight of a modern financial district above it. This single wooden pile, driven deep into the blue clay of the Thames riverbed by Roman engineers, is more than just a forgotten artifact. It is the skeletal anchor of a metropolis that was never supposed to exist. Most cities are founded on solid ground, but the capital of the United Kingdom was forced into being upon a tidal swamp that has spent millennia trying to swallow it whole. The mud is the enemy. To build here, early settlers had to conquer the water itself. Before the glass towers and asphalt arteries of modern London, there was only the erratic, tidal violence of the Thames. In 43 AD, the invading Roman army, led by Emperor Claudius, identified this specific bend in the river as the furthest point upstream where the water was deep enough for seagoing ships but narrow enough to bridge. They did not arrive to find a paradise. They found a desolate marshland that flooded twice a day every day. Their solution was brute force engineering. They drove thousands of timber piles into the muck to stabilize the banks, creating the first solid waterfront for docking military supplies. It was an engineering marvel, but the local tribes were watching. In 60 AD, the Iceni Queen Boudicca led a revolt that reduced the young settlement of Londinium to a smoldering graveyard. She burned the city so thoroughly that archaeologists today can still identify a distinctive layer of red, oxidized ash and burnt clay beneath the modern streets, known as the Boudiccan Destruction Layer. Every skyscraper in the city sits atop this scar. The Romans returned, rebuilding with stone and discipline, constructing a defensive wall that defined the city's footprint for the next 1,500 years. They created a thriving port where olive oil from Spain and pottery from Gaul were unloaded by dock workers on the bustling wharf. Commerce became the city's new religion. Yet the collapse of the Roman Empire left London abandoned and crumbling for centuries, a ghost city of white marble ruins sinking back into the dark earth. It wasn't until the medieval era that humanity truly swarmed back, packing itself into narrow, timber-framed alleyways that turned the city into a fire trap. By the 1600s, London was a chaotic labyrinth of wood and pitch waiting for a spark. That spark arrived in a bakery on Pudding Lane in September 1666. The Great Fire of London did not just burn, it obliterated the medieval city with a ferocity that melted the laid roof of the old St. Paul's Cathedral, sending molten metal flowing down the streets like lava. The heat was unimaginable. In the aftermath, the city faced a critical choice that would define its future shape. King Charles II and the visionary architect Christopher Wren stared at the smoking ruins and saw a blank canvas. Wren drew up a radical London urban planning map featuring wide, Parisian-style boulevards and geometric plazas that would have rivaled the grandeur of Rome. It was a masterpiece of logic, but the people of London refused to yield. Shopkeepers and landlords, desperate to protect their livelihoods, hammered stakes into the still-hot ashes to mark their original property lines, defying the crown to move them. The king capitulated. London was rebuilt not on a modern grid but on its ancient, chaotic medieval street plan, which remains the nightmare of traffic planners to this day. While the streets remained ancient, the population exploded, leading to a new crisis in the 19th century that was invisible but deadly. By 1850, London was the largest city on Earth, yet it still relied on medieval cesspits to manage human waste. The River Thames, the source of the city's drinking water, had become an open sewer, thick with excrement and industrial runoff. Cholera stalked the neighborhoods of Soho and Whitechapel, killing tens of thousands in terrifying waves. The breaking point arrived during the Great Stink of 1858, when the smell of the river was so noxious that Parliament had to soak their curtains in chloride of lime just to continue debating. The government finally authorized a rescue plan. Enter Joseph Bazalgette, the civil engineer who would save more lives than any monarch in British history. His plan was audacious. He would construct an entirely new circulatory system for the metropolis, burying 82 miles of main intercepting sewers and 1,100 miles of street sewers beneath the chaotic roads. This was not merely plumbing, it was a military campaign against filth. Army-like battalions of laborers dug trenches through the heart of the city, consuming 318 million bricks and 670,000 cubic yards of concrete. Bazalgette used the new, ultra-strong Portland cement, testing every batch to ensure it could withstand the crushing weight of the city above. Gravity did the work. He engineered the tunnels with such precise gradients that the waste would flow naturally eastward, away from the population centers powered only by physics. To house these massive pipes, he reclaimed 52 acres of land from the river itself, building the Victoria, Albert, and Chelsea embankments. These grand stone promenades trap the river, narrowing its channel to increase the flow speed and scour the bed clean. When you walk along the Thames today, you are walking on the roof of a sewage superhighway. Bazalgette's system was designed for a population of 4 million, but his foresight was so extreme that the tunnels are still in use today, serving nearly 9 million people. He built it to last. While Bazalgette conquered the filth below, other engineers looked even deeper to solve the gridlock above. The streets were paralyzed by horse-drawn traffic, creating a smog of manure and coal dust that choked the air. The solution was the world's first underground railway. In 1863, the Metropolitan Line opened, a feat of cut-and-cover engineering where entire streets were dug up, tracks laid, and then roofed over. It was a chaotic, smoky success. Steam trains underground were a hellish experience, choking passengers with sulfurous fumes, but the speed was addictive. To go deeper into the clay where cut-and-cover was impossible, engineers needed a new invention. Mark Brunel observed the shipworm, a mollusk that bored through wood while secreting a hard shell to protect itself, and applied this biology to engineering. He invented the tunneling shield, a moving protective cage that allowed miners to dig through soft, unstable soil without being crushed. This technology unlocked the deep-level tube lines. Today, the London Underground is a 250-mile subterranean kingdom, a tangled knot of tunnels that weave over and under each other like a bowl of steel spaghetti. It is a precision machine. Hidden within this network are secrets the average commuter never sees. During the Second World War, the deep-level tube stations were converted into air raid shelters, housing thousands of terrified Londoners as the Blitz rained fire from above. Some stations, like the abandoned Down Street, were transformed into secret bunkers for the government. Winston Churchill himself took refuge there, dining on caviar while the bombs fell. Even deeper, the Mail Rail, a dedicated driverless underground railway for the post office, shuttled millions of letters across the city for decades, entirely unknown to the pedestrians walking 70 feet above it. These silent tunnels remain. The city's relationship with water did not end with the Romans or Basil Jet. Beneath the asphalt, lost rivers still flow. The River Fleet, once a mighty waterway that carried ships, was slowly choked by trash and eventually bricked over, becoming a sewer that rushes beneath Fleet Street and empties into the Thames under Blackfriars Bridge. The Tyburn, the Effra, and the Walbrook all share this fate, imprisoned in masonry corsets, flowing silently beneath the foundations of banks and burger joints. You can sometimes hear them. If you stand over certain drain grates in Clerkenwell after a heavy rain, the rushing sound of the buried fleet is audible, a ghostly reminder of the landscape that existed before the city killed it. In the modern era, London faced a new existential threat: economic irrelevance. The historic docks that had made the United Kingdom a global empire collapsed in the 1960s and 70s, unable to handle modern shipping containers. The East End fell into poverty and decay. The response was the largest urban regeneration project in Europe, the transformation of the Isle of Dogs into Canary Wharf. In the 1980s, desolate, weed-choked wharves were cleared to make way for a second financial district. Concrete mixers worked 24/7 as skyscrapers rose from the water. The centerpiece, One Canada Square, stood as a lonely monolith for years, a gamble on the city's future that eventually paid off, shifting the center of gravity eastward. The skyline of London is now a battleground of architects. The City of London, the historic Square Mile, has authorized a cluster of high-tech eccentricities to circumvent protected view laws that forbid blocking the sightline of St. Paul's Cathedral. This legislative constraint forced architects like Norman Foster to get creative, resulting in the Gherkin, whose swirling glass design deflects wind and reduces structural stress. Nearby, the cheese grater leans back at a 10-degree angle specifically to preserve the view of the cathedral dome from Fleet Street. Form follows regulation. South of the river, the Shard, designed by Renzo Piano, pierces the sky at 310 meters, the tallest building in the UK. Constructing this glass needle required a top-down method, where the core was built upwards while the basement was simultaneously dug downwards, a high-stakes race against time and gravity. 95% of the construction materials were recycled or reused, a testament to modern sustainability. But the greatest challenge for London's future isn't the sky, it's the water returning. The Thames Barrier, a movable flood defense spanning 520 meters across the river, is the only thing standing between central London and a catastrophic North Sea storm surge. Operational since 1982, its massive steel gates, shaped like rotating segments of a cylinder, lie flat on the riverbed, allowing ships to pass. When a surge is predicted, the gates rotate 90 degrees, forming a steel wall against the tide. Originally designed to be used 2 or 3 times a year, it is now raised 6 or 7 times annually, a mechanical sentinel fighting the rising sea levels. The climate is changing. London's hunger for expansion has recently gone underground again with the Elizabeth Line, or Crossrail. This £19 billion megaproject required boring 42 kilometers of new tunnels through the most congested underground space on the planet. Tunnel boring machines weighing 1,000 tons each threaded the needle between existing tube lines, sewer pipes, and building foundations, sometimes missing sensitive infrastructure by less than a meter. It was open-heart surgery on a living city. As the sun sets, a helicopter aerial over the city reveals a sprawling galaxy of sodium lights and red tail lights, a living organism that refuses to sleep. From the Roman leather bikini bottoms found in the mud to the fiber optic cables pulsing with global stock data, London is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over again and again, where the old words still bleed through the new ink. It is a city built on the daring of engineers who looked at a swamp and saw an empire. The mud is still there, waiting, but for now, the city stands. London does not just survive its history, it builds upon it, layer by heavy layer, reaching ever higher into the gray clouds.